started, correct? All right. So hearing no public comment, do we have any public comment related to the agenda this evening from our audience? Okay. Hearing no public comment, we'll go right into the agenda. Do we have any presentations this evening, Stephanie? No presentation. All right. Next item would be the land use matters, public hearings, and ordinances. The first item on our agenda this evening is to discuss preliminary and final minor subdivision and waiver of the land development application for the Conshohocken Italian Bakery, LaFamiglia 1 LP applicant. So with that, I would like to introduce and invite Judith Roden, the attorney for the applicant, and Tina Gambone, the applicant, to come to the podium, and please present your specifications for the application.
You can also use the table if that works better for your materials. It's up to you.
Okay.
You can
And
go to
while
the
you're
podium.
getting settled there, just a reminder to council, if you are speaking, please turn your microphones on so the people at home can hear.
Good evening, and thank you. Gregory Knoll is the engineer for the project. He's going to present the plan, because there's been some revisions.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. Again, my name is Greg Knoll, and I'm a licensed professional land surveyor in the Commonwealth. I prepared the plan that's in front of you, and it is up on the big screen, and I have a copy here. If you want to see it up close, I can certainly approach. But yeah, I am in receipt of the comment letter written by Karen McNair and of Gilmore and Associates, and we understand everything in the comment letter. We plan on satisfying all items in the comment letter. We have made revisions already, and we're probably 95% of the way there. If you would like to discuss any of the items in the letter, we can certainly go over them. But essentially what we're doing, and if I can I go to the screen here and point out we have an existing conditions plan. So all these lots are separate individual lots. And basically, this is our proposed condition. We're going to be eliminating a lot of these lot lines, making this all one lot. And then these lots came down to here. We're going to be shortening them up and ending them there because obviously it doesn't do them any good to own part of this building. So we're kind of cleaning up a lot of the issues of the past. And again, it's pretty simple what we're trying to do here. We're just adjusting these two lots and consolidating this lot all into one. That way the bakery is all on one tax parcel rather than all separate tax parcels.
Are the two residential, are they going to remain in the Gambone family and be like rental properties as they are now? The ones that when you lop off on 607 and 613, when you
They are
separate the
remaining
lot.
in our portfolio.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes. Yeah, so that we'll only have one owner's
Right.
notarization because they own all of the properties.
Cool.
So again, it's pretty simple. Again, I've reviewed the letter. We understand everything in it, and we've been corresponding with the engineer and the zoning officer, and we think we're pretty close to having a final product for recording.
When it's all said and done, what will be the address of that property?
That I believe we'll have to get. You guys will have to give that.
Right.
And discuss it with the county. Typically, the municipality provides
It's very impressive how much documentation that you've had since you started expanding out of the back, all the 20 years or so of zoning hearing boards, and it was reading it over and over again. But it is very impressive how you just step by step got to where you are now.
Well, I can't take credit for that. That was Allison Lee, your zoning officer. She's not here tonight, but she did a very
thorough.
great job.
Yeah.
Basically, we duplicated that on the plan, reformatted it and whatnot. And that's why we went to two sheets here. because Karen was having a hard time reading everything. So we have the existing and proposed here, and then on this side, we have the prior variances and all the different zoning. So, it's a two-sheet. It's the only way to make it work.
And within that cluster of properties, there's that one hapless property at 605, that's going to, that in somebody else's ownership, Mr. Ostroff, is that going to just stay
Yes.
completely intact? No,
Yeah.
no, okay, cool.
We're not proposing any changes there.
Anyone have any other questions related to the project? Okay, there's no vote this evening. This was just a
I do have
question
one
and
more
answer. Go
question.
ahead.
You know, how happy are you that you've gotten to this point and it's almost over?
Be happier if it was 3 months ago, but
I know, it's been a long time.
yes, well, we have elderly parents to take care of. So
I know. But I'm happy for you.
thank you.
That
We
makes
are
sense.
as well.
Okay, anybody else? Well, thank you for taking the time to go over it with us and allowing the opportunity to ask some questions. It looks like you've done a lot of work to help clean it up and get it to the point where it can get addressed, so
Thank you.
appreciate
Have a
it.
good night.
An approval resolution will be drafted. It'll be on your agenda for March 19th. And then the applicant will be notified of
Okay.
once the vote is taken.
All right. Next item on the agenda under land use, public hearings and ordinances is a discussion on the preliminary and final minor subdivision and land development application for 440 East 9th Avenue, the Catania Construction LLC applicant. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mark Danick, the attorney for the applicant, and Keith Catania, the applicant, to come to the podium and present us your specifications.
Hello, I'm Mark Danick on behalf of Catania Construction. The property that's involved here is 440 East 9th. It's an existing single-family home that was structurally compromised. We did submit an engineering report and got approval from the borough to tear down the existing structure. And the proposal is to subdivide the property into 2 lots with 2 single-family homes and a detached garage. We did secure zoning approval for the variances because the lots are only 30-foot wide, where they're required to be 40-foot wide in the BR1. And if you want to put up, well, you can put up the site plan first, please, Brittany. This is a general layout of the proposal. There are two single-family homes. It's a very typical project right now. It seems like in the borough that there's a number of developers that are subdividing larger lots and putting up 2 smaller single-family homes. Smaller price point that allows, say, young families and other people to become homeowners instead of permanent renters. That's why Mr. Catania wanted to do 2 single-family homes of a more modest size so that they'd fit in with the neighborhood as well. And Brittany, can you put up the elevations, please? And this is a side view. And then you can see the typical elevation. One of the things that came up at Planning Commission, there was a concern about whether the windows would be across from each other and if we could mirror the homes. The reason why we cannot mirror the homes, so they're 2 identical units side by side, is in the rear yard area, the way the stormwater has to work. And then there's an existing tree in the backyard that has to be preserved. So the only way to accomplish that is to have the 2 identical homes. So, because if they were flipped, the stormwater would be right where the tree is. And that was an issue that came up with Planning Commission. We did go to Planning Commission in February. They voted unanimously in favor of recommending approval. Since submitting, we did receive a number of review letters. December 20th from Borough Engineer, December 23rd from Borough Zoning, December 30th from the borough's traffic engineer, December 20th, the borough's fire marshal, and January 3rd, 2025 from the Montgomery County Planning Commission. Applicant does intend to comply with all the conditions of those letters, subject to the waiver letter that I submitted February 12th that lists out 7 requested waivers. And I could run through the waivers if council requests.
Does anyone want the waivers run through, or are you okay with what was in the upload?
It's in the upload.
Everybody okay with what was in the
Yeah, it's in
upload? Stace, you okay? Okay. Anyone have any questions for the applicant or the applicant's attorney related to the project?
These are single-family homes, correct?
Yes.
How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms?
4 bedrooms, 3.5 bath.
What's your time frame for completion?
Depending on approvals, hopefully September, October.
Keith, have you built any of these like this before in the borough?
Yes,
Okay. So they're just like the ones that you did the
very
last time?
similar, yes.
Okay.
Did you build the ones on West 9th?
West 9th, I did not.
Okay. Because they look similar.
I believe it was. I believe that was Dave Brasso.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, that sounds.
Any other questions related to the project itself?
No, I mean, you already have all your zoning variances, so I think we just need to consider the waivers, correct?
And it was only one variance on the lot width. We were otherwise compliant.
All right.
Construction.
Which,
I have a question for you. I was on planning a long time ago. Why did the contractors go from 8-foot porches to 6? Is there a reason for that?
Probably for the front setback.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
okay. No vote is required this evening. We'll take a look and we'll have a vote on our March 15th,
March 19th.
19th. All right, wonderful.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
for-
Thank you.
All right.
Sure, it's fine.
Next item on our agenda this evening is under council business, and we will be conducting an interview for our zoning hearing board alternate position. If Christopher Deeroff would mind coming up to the podium. How are you, Christopher?
Doing well. About yourself?
Very well, thank you. So tell us why you'd like to be a zoning hearing board alternate.
So, really, the opportunity came out to me. A good friend of mine, Tyler Dunphy, is currently a member on the board, and when the position opened up, he reached out to me and asked if I would be interested. And I thought about it and realized, I've been living in Conchi for 6 years now, and I've kind of always wanted to get more involved. And I really like it here. It's a good spot to live. There's a good community, and I really want to help give back. And being a part of the grant, I know there's issues with the grant, and there's some strong opinions in the grant as well. And really, it can help me, provide my voice for the rest of the community to stick up for whatever issues come up. Kind of act as a representative for the rest of my community and make sure that I act in our best interests. And I thought this would be a good place to start.
Great.
Have you been to any of the meetings?
I have not. Since it came up, I think I was only here for one, and I wasn't able to make it. So.
Do you know anything about zoning at all?
A
little bit?
A little bit. I met with Tyler and Alan, and we
Okay.
discussed the opening and what type of things. Typically, what type of things tend to come up and things to look at, and it opened my eyes kind of to see. Initially I was like, who cares? And I was like, no, there's a lot to think about, and really made me think that this is a big responsibility that I think I can help give my insight from my engineering career I can leave my insight too.
Thank you.
So I spent time on the zoning hearing board, and you and I have had a long discussion about it. Something that I found that's very helpful is spending a lot of time reading. So we get the documents from the applicants and then read through the ordinances. Can you talk about how your career experience lends you to have that ability to read and apply?
Sure. So I work in pharmaceutical manufacturing at Merck. A lot of what I do involves reading procedures and making sure that what we're doing applies to them. So I'm very familiar with reading standards, guidelines, things, and making sure, okay, like, here's what the procedures say, here's what we want to do. Okay, so what we're doing doesn't fit with the procedures. How can we adjust what we want to do to meet with the procedures, or what type of variances, deviations as we call them in my field, can we look at to help make sure that we're still hitting the intention of the standards, as well as making sure that we're actually getting to do what the end goal is here. So I guess long story short, I read a lot of standards, procedures, guidelines, whatever you want to call it, for my job. I tend to know, like, read what they're looking for, what the intention of the standard is, and applying that appropriately in the right situation.
That works.
Anyone else? What do you think your top priority will be as a member of the zoning hearing board, as an alternate member?
I think number one will be safety for me. You know, it again comes from my career, but the most important thing is that we're all people, and we want to make sure that we are safe, and that whatever changes we're proposing leaves everybody who's involved with it, everybody who will come into contact with it, the same as they are when they first come into contact with it. So I think safety will come first and foremost to me, just to make sure that we're not causing any undue potential danger to the community.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you for your time this evening. We won't be voting tonight, but we will be letting you know. I think the vote is the next meeting. March 19th. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, under Manager Matters, is to consider appointing an applicant to the Friends of Conshohocken Park. So this evening, I'd like to receive a motion to appoint Chris Mondoth to the Friends of Conshohocken Parks.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Chris. He's not here. All right, next item on the agenda is to consider approving a proposal for engineering services for the Harry Street Road Improvement Project. So I'll invite Tyler Williams up to the podium just to go over the project scope for the Harry Street Road Improvement Project for our 2025 program this year.
Good evening. So the project that we're discussing tonight is rehabilitation of Harry Street, starting from where we left off in 2023 at 8th Street and heading up to, 8th Avenue and heading up to 11th Avenue. Very, very similar project to what we've done the past 2 years. It's going to involve intersection reconstruction, updating all the curb ramps to be ADA compliant. This project includes a couple of concrete driveway aprons that have drainage pipes that are kind of creating a tripping hazard and a hazard for the driving public. So those will be removed. New concrete driveway aprons will be put in. Those will also be ADA compliant. And then we'll be resurfacing the roadway from 8th to 11th. And it's worth noting that the borough did receive $451,000 from DCED to fund the construction and engineering for this project.
Is that a match grant, Stephanie, for this?
It is
Or
no match.
Tyler?
No match.
So will the project exceed $450,000, do we think, for 3 blocks?
Yeah, so if you look at the memo that I provided, the total estimated project costs are around $581,000. That includes our estimated construction costs and the engineering inspection costs.
So 3 blocks of just one street, over $500,000.
Yep,
Which is why we can only do one at a time.
that's right, yep.
That is correct.
kind of cost prohibitive to be reconstructing the intersections, but in the state that we have out here, it needs to be done, so.
And then for budgetary purposes, just to clarify, the MTF grant was for $451,783. We budgeted money in the capital budget up to a certain number. We will utilize roughly 130,000 of those budgeted dollars to meet the total project, the estimated project cost of $581,000. Now that is dependent upon bidding and bids being received, so we won't know that until we go through that process. But fingers crossed, it falls within that range, and we will get this very important project that we've been trying to complete for many years now. Complete. Great.
And there's no need to tear up the road, everything underneath is done, Pico or everything.
We're not proposing any underground utility work.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep. And I don't anticipate running into any issues, but.
Perfect.
What's the time frame? The ETA, if it were approved?
I would hope to be into construction by end of May, beginning of June, and we would construct this season. We'd be done with all the work before the end of September.
Okay, so roughly like 4 or 5 months of work.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have to design it and then go through the bidding process, which is a month. Then the borough's RCO adds a little bit of time after that, but yeah, I would anticipate a 90-day construction timeframe once the contractor gets the notice to proceed.
But we are doing a road program in 2025, and you'll be pulling on resources that you strategically put in your new road fund in order to carry out that project.
I think what I'm trying to do is set the expectations here that we're not going to be able to do the whole borough of Conshohocken in a short period of time based on the cost of what we're seeing for this type of project at $500,000 at 3 blocks.
Correct.
When we have how many miles of road in Conshohocken? 17 road miles. Yeah. So I'm setting the expectation that the roads aren't going to be done anytime soon. We're going to keep working through the process, and we will put a program in place so that we can do roads every year.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.
If there's no more questions for Tyler, and I've set the expectation for what our road programs will look like, I will be looking for a motion to approve a proposal for engineering services for the Harry Street Road Improvement Project at a cost not to exceed $79,220.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is to discuss an RFP for architectural design services for a public safety services facility. Steph, would you like to address the RFP?
We have laid out specific milestones in terms of the future public safety services facility that will house both fire and EMS that will be located at the old Moore site that is now demoed. And one of the first steps in that, in addition to working directly with the fire companies and the EMS in terms of designing what they need in terms of operations, we are working towards preparing, lining up our professional services that are going to be required to be in place so that we can continue to hit those milestones of that 5-year plan that we have for the structure itself. The architectural design services is step 1. You have Gilmore, who's working as your consultant on the site design. There will be an RFP forthcoming in the near future for bond counsel and financial services as it relates to the financing of that project. But this evening, the architectural design services RFP has a scope of services that basically talks about general building design, meeting ADA standards, providing design services for the construction of the new facility that includes structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and coordination with the borough engineer on the site design. It includes conceptual and schematic design, meeting with staff to set expectations and objectives for the project, design development, budget development, construction documents, bidding and contract award, and then construction administration and project closeout. In addition to an architect, an engineer, and a site design, we are also looking at opportunities to work directly with a construction manager that would serve as a representative, as a direct professional service to the borough. We learned a lot of lessons with the construction of the Borough Hall building and the project, so we're exploring that option as well. Again, if that position gets appointed, they would be working directly with our architect. The contents of the proposal require an executive summary, contact information, an overview of the company or firm, the understanding of the scope of work, fees in a form of a not to exceed that includes sub-consultants as well, cost of materials, status reports, a project timeline, and references. So the RFP timeline, the tentative timeline that we're proposing in this draft is that it will be discussed this evening on your agenda for consideration for advertisement on March 21st. We would set a proposal due date of April 24th, 2025. At that point, there would be a thorough evaluation of proposals by administration. Council then would review the responses and consider the RFP responses in May and consider awarding a bid to a selected firm at the end of May and a TBD on contract award. Depending on the response that we receive from an administrative perspective, we'll determine whether or not we think we need to take this a step further in terms of formally interviewing the selected firms. So if that is a recommendation and a direction that we think we should go, the timeline on when that would be formally, the contract would be awarded may be delayed by a month or two. We have indicated that in the RFP so that any firms that are applying are aware of that potential extension. There is a selection process that is spelled out in the RFP. I think it's important to note that it's relevant experience, business qualification, key personnel, the satisfactory completion of similar services and cost. Again, what we learned from the construction of the Borough Hall is that we will be not just looking at lowest cost, we'll be looking at quality as well and experience and the ability to work collaboratively with our elected officials, administration, and the fire and the EMS that are going to be pivotal aspects in terms of what that final structure looks and how it operates. And then there's the legalese and the requirements in terms of indemnification, insurance, rights of refusal, et cetera. So in terms of the RFP document, it's pretty straightforward and comparative to our other RFPs. We may go a little bit more in depth, but we'll know that once we see the responses. And so first big step in terms of the public safety services facility outside of the purchase of the property and the demo of the property, which we were very lucky to be able to do with our in-house public services crew. So again, a big thank you to Borough Council for providing not only the equipment but also the training that you've done over the last couple of years. It's really set us up internally to be able to handle some of the bigger items that are coming our way. So for this evening, if you have any questions on the RFP, I'd be happy to answer them. And then it'll appear back on your agenda for the 19th for consideration for advertisement.
Anyone have any questions on the RFP process?
And you have costs budgeted in 2025 in order to basically acquire the architect and get the process going. But as we discussed in your budget meeting in September, the large bulk of your costs associated with your architecture and design costs will be included in your 2026 budget.
And then we're giving them the standard 4 weeks to turn the RFP around.
That's correct.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, we don't need a vote this evening.
No vote.
Thank you, Steph.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda this evening is under department matters. There will be a discussion on the extension of the one-way traffic regulation on East 2nd Avenue. Ray Sokolowski, would you mind coming to the podium to talk about the extension?
The Second Avenue parking was, or Second Avenue one-way street was implemented on March 1st. It was delayed by a couple months. Weather issues, everything else the borough was getting involved with, including the whole Super Bowl thing, kind of slowed us down. So we don't have really any tangible evidence that it's working or not working. I did have a discussion with the people in the businesses in that area. I just explained to them again what this was all about. We have since had some changes in that area. Not Jaspers, but Daniels. What was formerly known as Daniels, I don't think when it comes back it'll be Daniels if it comes back. That won't be there. That's probably a 6 to 8 month process before they would even be able to occupy that building. Anybody be able to occupy that building. Those barriers were removed to make the people happy that didn't like them there. Those barriers were removed today, so they're gone. And I've had some conversations with him, so we'll see if he's able to come back from this. If anybody does not know, sprinkler system gave way on the second floor and was right over the top of their bar, which destroyed their bar and a good portion of the restaurant. So that's changed, and we are in some conversations with some businesses down there to add some additional parking. We're going to see how that works out. If that works out, that'll change some of the signage scenarios that you saw earlier. So we may have some additional parking in the area of First Avenue and the parking garages. That's what we're kind of looking at. So we're asking now for an extension because literally I don't have enough information to decide whether this is a good idea or not, or whether we should make some types of changes to it or not. But like I said, I did have a conversation with the businesses, and the businesses are going to keep an eye on their scenarios. I've already gotten a few phone calls about signage, and we've upped the signage in that neighborhood so people know it's one way. When the weather gets a little bit warmer, they'll be able to put something on the roadway too, to make people aware that it's a one-way street. We did have, 1 week before that, we did have a broadside accident right in that intersection from a car pulling out of 2nd Avenue onto Fayette Street, which is what we're trying to avoid. Avoid that and 2nd Avenue pedestrian traffic issues.
And so the current temporary resolution is in place until April 6th. So we're discussing it this evening, so it appears on your agenda on the 19th for a vote, so that as of April 6th, when the previous temporary resolution would expire, it will then be extended for a period of 90 days from that April 6th date.
Could you remind us for the record which direction the one-way is going, please?
So it's going from, one-way is going from Harry Street to Fayette Street. I'm sorry. One-way is going from Fayette Street to Harry Street. And there's a loop now, which we've put in, which Public Services has put in, no right-hand turn signs. But I haven't continued down the block, which is what the objective is, to continue down Harry Street towards East Elm Street and have that complete loop done. Again, some of it's private property, and we've already had discussions with that. We found signs that were supposed to have been there for no left-hand turn and right-hand turn that were probably removed 10 and 15 years ago, and nobody decided to put them back. So we have recently put them back. You'll start to notice some changes in signage on Fayette Street too, which by looking at it, we've discovered that no left-hand turn signs, for instance, are in the right, all the way in the right-hand lane. So they used to be on the mast arms. When the mast arms were changed, they never put them back on the mast arms. So you literally have a sign that says no left-hand turn in the parking lane for the left-hand turn lane. So we're going to switch them out, change some of the parking signs. You'll be able to identify them clearly as parking signs, but it is, it's an ever-changing thing, just like a lot of other things in the Borough of Conshohocken. When we have an opportunity to obtain more parking, especially down in that area, and we enter into some conversations over that, we're not going to walk away from that. It's beneficial for us to have as much parking down there as possible. It's only busier. If you haven't been there on a Sunday morning and tried to get into Nudies, it's pretty crazy there.
Okay. So no vote. We'll see it on April or March 19th for the extension.
Real quick, Chief Lennon, I was down there today and I parked on 2nd Avenue the right direction, and within 5 minutes I saw 2 cars coming out down the one-way. Is there a way to just have the guys doing like, maybe like a sit down there, like just a little bit of extra just to kind of let people know the change?
Additional signage.
Okay. Okay, just wanted to let you know. All right, thank you.
Yeah, there'll be additional signage put up this week, including one way. And there still is a huge
Sign down there, yes.
sign, electronic sign that you really can't miss. And we even went to the school and had a conversation with the superintendent or the director of the school to make sure that, you know, she told the parents, and she sent out a blast email to all the parents so they knew. But we're gonna have that. It's just you know, we're gonna have that for a little while. But so far we haven't had any issues, but it hasn't been a full week, so we'll see what happens.
Any other questions? Nope. All right, thank you. Alrighty, next item on our agenda this evening is under legal matters, and we are going to have a discussion on the redistricting process for the borough's wards. So, under that discussion, we'll ask Mike to talk about the process, and we'll be looking for a motion to consider appointing Curtin and Hefner as special counsel for this redistricting of the borough's wards.
All right, great. Council has before it a proposal from Curtin and Hefner. They have performed work for other municipalities and also for citizens groups, which is why they were of particular interest, because they've done both sides in terms of going through the redistricting process. They've put together for you a proposal of how that process will work. The goal of that process is, you know, one person, one vote, so the ward should be as balanced as they can be made. Right now, there are wards that are obviously unbalanced, so it is a process that the borough needs to undertake. And the proposal that they have, which is in line, and was in line even before Steph and I talked to them about it, with how you've done other projects in the past, they would propose to create a committee that would include, you know, council members and members of the public to work through the wards for purposes of determining how they should be remapped. There are lots of ways to go about doing that. There are even some fun ways in terms of competitions and stuff that maybe we don't need to do here, but the point is that the approach, which is making sure the public is heavily involved, is one that I think council certainly supports. And the other thing I would say is, by doing it that way, not that cost is the most important thing, but by engaging the community and having the community come up with the new maps, you may be able to avoid bringing in someone who does this on a professional capacity in terms of map drawing, if you, along with the public, are able to do so yourselves. The rate that they proposed, that Curtin Hefner proposed, was a blended rate of $260 an hour. That rate is just slightly higher than your general rate for me, so for special counsel, it's a fair rate. I worked with them in a project they did in Central Bucks School District, where they represented a group of citizens challenging actually what the district had done, and the map that they came up with their citizens group was the map ultimately imposed by the court. So the first step in this process will be creating the committee, and then from there, we'll develop a timeline, share with the public so everybody knows what's going to happen.
Will it be a committee or a task force?
Whatever you guys want to call it, you know.
I'm just thinking from a timing perspective,
Yeah.
task force is probably the more accurate.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
So, Mike, since we're engaging the public in this, can you just go over like the expectations for, you know, Curtin and Hefner, what their position is in this, how the public gives their input, how that is weighted, and how everything's designed? The law firm is there just to make sure everything falls within the legal framework, while the public and council
Exactly.
decides that. Is that?
Yes, so I think they'll end up being, there'll be some aspects of what Curtin and Hefner, of what they will be doing that is, absolutely, they'll make sure we fall within the framework of the Constitution, which is one person, one vote, and making sure the wards are appropriately apportioned. The other thing they'll do, only because they've been through the process before, is give the task force guidance on how they think the process should go. After that guidance occurs, I'm guessing the task force, in terms of scheduling meetings and running with it, will sort of run on its own, with Curtin and Hefner being there to advise. And then the public's input as viewed in this particular process will be weighed extremely heavily. That's the whole point of the process. So, whether it's the public, if somebody in the public gets excited about this and wants to propose their own map, anything is on the table right now in terms of trying to develop the map. So Curtin and Hefner does not actually, we don't envision them creating the map. We envision council, the task force, and the public creating the map. As you guys know the borough better than Curtin and Hefner does.
And what's the approval process like? So if there's community engagement with advisement from the law firm to ensure that whatever that map finally looks like meets the constitutional requirements, and the one person, one vote for the Borough of Conshohocken, then the task force has to take that recommendation and go where with it?
To Borough Council.
So ultimately, Borough Council will be the entity that's approving?
Yes, Borough Council will approve a map, a redistricting map for the borough. That map is provided to the Board of Election, but there's also an opportunity for challenge to that map, which is what happened in Central Bucks, the example I gave you. Our intent and our goal, especially by engaging a firm that has worked with citizens groups before, is to avoid all of that and make sure that there's enough public input from the beginning, so that when you get to the point where you're approving a map, our hope is that the public will be just as on board as you are.
Any other questions related to the process for
And for purposes of expectations, Tina, I mean, obviously this will not go into effect for the primary coming up, so this will be for the next election, not next year, the year after.
The year of 2026.
It would be 27.
27.
27, yep.
And when we have created task force in the past, there has been very specific regulations in terms of what that task force has the authority to do, the makeup of the task force, et cetera. That intent is the same in this scenario?
It is, and I will, again, we're bringing in the experts, but that part of it I can help with too. So we'll frame, we'll do it very similar in terms of making sure it's very clear with the task force. The deliverables, their authority, and also, to try to make sure it's organized and goes smooth. And also the makeup. I mean, we'll probably specifically
and
identify the
timeline,
makeup.
right? So setting the expectations of the task force.
Yeah, and I'll work with Brendan Flynn is going to be your primary contact, and I'll work directly with him just because I know how you've set up the task force before.
Mike, you mentioned there was a challenge for the Bucks County. What was the challenge in that, and how did they go about creating that?
Yeah, it was really interesting. What ended up happening was some of the seats that were coming up for election, the folks that lived within those districts actually weren't going to get to vote for their school board member for it was going to skip a year. Basically, is what was going to happen. And there was also a concern that the map wasn't wasn't drafted in a way that complied with the one person, one vote requirement. So the challenges tend to be like pretty straightforward, you know? So I'm very confident that you guys can avoid, first of all, that you can avoid a successful challenge, but you don't want a challenge at all, period, right? So that's what you'll be able to avoid.
When were the,
I'm sorry.
when were the current wards established or made?
The current map, it's a great question. I don't know. They have not been touched, you know. Yeah, I mean, they
I
have.
can give you Bob Stokely's number, he probably knows.
Yeah.
So, I mean, would it be
Decades.
correct, it was, sorry, say that again?
Likely decades.
Decades.
Decades, yeah.
So the wards have been this for decades, so, thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, hearing no other questions. Did I hear something? No? What we need this evening is just a motion to approve Curtin and Hefner LLP as our special counsel for the redistricting of the borough wards.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, that concludes all of the items for discussion. So at this time, we'll go through council member and mayor matters. So the first item under that is our public comment. Anyone have public comment this evening? No? All right, nobody wants to talk this evening. I know who wants to talk. Our mayor.
That's the job, right? So St. Mark's is having their Easter egg sale. Anyone can scan that QR code and order your eggs. They are the price went up a couple dollars just because of inflation. But I was just talking to a resident at an event the other day, and they said they look forward to the chocolate eggs every year. So I highly recommend we get the mint and the peanut butter on our end, although I hear the coconut's really good. So please support St. Mark's, and I'm sure they'll appreciate it. We also had last night, the Kiwanis Club of Conshohocken had their annual Mardi Gras event with raffles and food and all kinds of good stuff. So the Kiwanis Club in particular donates to educational themed charities, so things that involve students. So this is one of their big events for the year, and brought Thomas along for the first time. He thought the jalapeno poppers were cookies. Ooh. Could have been a disaster, but then he loved the poppers, so it worked out for everyone. So it was a really good time and great to catch up with that really nice community group that we have here in town. And then finally, we're getting really close to the parade. On March 15th, Saturday, we not only have the parade, but at 12:30, we have the Conchi Classic 5K, which is put on by our fire department. That'll go off at 12:30, and then the parade will happen at 2 p.m. sharp. So it's a fun day, and the website to register for the 5K is conchiclassic.com. That's it for me.
Great, thank you. Ralph? Stace?
I'm good, thank you.
Kathleen?
Just to remind everybody, February is Women's History Month. I'm a woman, I got some history. So
Excellent.
there we go.
Everybody give Kathleen a call and ask her about her history.
Nothing, thank you.
Adrian?
Nothing tonight.
Bless you. Alan?
Nothing, thank you.
All right, and I have nothing. So with that, I will say good meeting and meeting adjourned.